Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for tuning in to this Red Kingdom Media production, bringing you raw, authentic Chiefs coverage. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on your team. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Home of the Chiefs podcast, where the Chiefs are our home. We are your hosts, Clinton and Shannon, and we are here this week to kind of give a State of the Union, I guess, so to say, on the Chiefs team.
Part 2. Kind of.
Yeah, because Monday, which I'll go ahead and link right here, the breakdown video I made didn't sound so happy and upbeat, mostly because it was just going through what's actually going on, and sometimes you can't fully digest how things are until you can look at yourself in the mirror and evaluate where you're not owning up and stepping up and putting in the right amount of effort. So we saw the game itself, which we're going to talk about and all that here. But we saw some angry guys after this game in particular.
Some fiery guys.
So most of it seemed to be about the officiating or whatever the case, but you saw the fire. So here's hoping that maybe that will continue.
I really hope.
If the Chiefs want to win the rest of this year, I truly think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
So
we have to play Madden.
We'll go ahead and run through today's topics. So, tough for Toney. Not going to spend this segment beating him up or anything like that, but the Chiefs lost to the Bills 20-17, and of course that final drive is what everyone remembers, but those aren't the only issues that occurred during this game, and not the only offensive or defensive struggles that occurred during that game. So we'll go over that game as a whole. Boiling point reached. So we just stated a little bit ago that Patrick and Andy both demonstrated some frustration. Both of them towards officiating, and those are very uncharacteristic for them, and both walked back their statements the next day. But we will discuss whether or not we think that was truly a boiling point. See if we've hit a steaming version of this team where they're a lot more focused and they are ready to take things a little more seriously than what we thought we saw them at several weeks in a row prior to this. A broken record. So Travis in the New Heights podcast this week mentioned that he thinks everyone on that team is well equipped to turn things around, and he believes that that's going to happen. However, we've had several episodes of shows between all of our different productions here, basically flipping back and forth between believing something's going to get better, it does for a bit, and then it tapers down, and we're left thinking to ourselves, what? When is this team going to actually turn themselves around versus, come out with just a little bit or one game and then keep falling flat?
Yeah.
And then finally, we're going to talk about Pat versus the Pats. So we got a noon kickoff game in Foxborough that originally was going to be a Monday nighter. So the NFL deems the Patriots not that good of a team, and playing with their backup quarterback who wasn't starting the season to begin with, including the rest of the season, frankly, for the Chiefs. They should be really focused on getting through the rest of your schedule, not losing any games along the way, and see if the playoffs will work themselves out for you by getting the couple teams you need to make drop in the standings to maybe make the 1 seed happen, or maybe fix them at the 2 seed, or wherever the case, wherever they end up lining up when it's all said and done. So before we go into that, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Kingdom Media. Follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars. Whatever you do on whatever platform, we're on there, so interact with us. And for those who haven't been on our page recently, I'm going to add the card here now, where we had a talk with former Chiefs tight end Jason Dunn, and that was a heck of a conversation, nearly 2 hours of your time. So if you need to put that at fast speed because you got some other things to do, it is definitely worth a listen. If you are a fan of the Chiefs in general,
it's so cool,
and you have any historical relevancy to the Chiefs in your childhood, then this is a show to listen to. He also gives his opinions on the Chiefs state as well, which we're going to get into here right now. So if that interests you, go check that out, because it definitely interests the crew last night. We had a blast doing that. All right, so tough for Toney.
Yep.
So as I stated, the Kansas City Chiefs lost to Buffalo Bills 20-17 on Sunday afternoon. Very high-profile game. Main CBS crew on it. We were going into that game without Pacheco, so that gave a little bit of doubts to things. The Bills were getting some players back that they had been missing or had arrested and couldn't play. And they were running off of a 9/11 storyline, and that was apparently enough to get them over the hump. So stupid when you put it that way, and very blunt, but that's what it ended up being. The team that had a storyline of that magnitude was still able to come to your house and beat you. And frankly, the Chiefs, like many times this season, will let teams beat them by beating themselves on top of it. So it's frustrating, but like, to think that everything was going to work itself out was not the right thing. It wasn't very smart, and I think it seems to be in every place issue. It's not just like the wide receivers or the offensive line or something. It was like a collective of frustrations and mistakes and interceptions and turnovers and penalties and et cetera.
Everything just piled on top of each other.
And it's safe to say at this point that has to make some people nervous. If they weren't nervous prior to that game because they were happy with their record, now that record with one additional loss added to it doesn't make those same people feel as confident.
Yeah, I'm for sure nervous.
So the Chiefs have a great remaining schedule, and we had made that same claim the last 3 to 4 weeks already, where they lost like 4 of those games already within that span. So this is a big deal. It's not something that can't be overcome, but we keep asking that question: when do we think it's going to be overcame?
Yeah, it's
And-
got to be addressed at some point, and it seems like it hasn't been.
So this loss in particular, the main storyline coming out of it is obviously the offsides penalty that you get called right away, so everyone gets excited for it because you assume an offside means on the defense. But Toney was over the line; he was in the neutral zone, so that's a penalty. But the main storyline after the fact is that he should have been called 4 other times.
Hmm.
So everyone might take that as to say don't do it in the last 2 minutes of the game when the game matters like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus saying, maybe that's on coaching to not fix it the other 3 times where he was, feeding and got away with it.
Hmm.
So there seems to be this like lack of attention to detail.
Yeah.
And in a game of inches, in a game of like extra hours in the day to study and look through game film and find your weaknesses and stuff, you can't afford to give an inch like that anymore.
No.
So the Chiefs they lost the turnover battles and they lost the game. This Chiefs team can't afford to commit turnovers anymore.
Mm-mm.
And at
Not
this point, their
anymore.
team isn't equipped to overcome their penalties.
Yep.
Or 1 or 2 bad drops in a drive. They're not able to overcome that anymore. So when they used to exhibit confidence, like there is no task too hard for us to handle,
Hmm.
they at this point seems to get frustrated in the wrong way where they tighten up and you're not playing at your best.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did that game feel for you in general?
I mean, I kind of expected it because it's what we've been seeing, but it's still frustrating to see that like not be addressed, and like you said, lack of attention to detail and to the little things that matter in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you turn around and it's one stupid play that could have helped us win. One play that we messed up on one time, one drive that like you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. I said in the post game that defense like bailed the offense out completely.
Mhm.
It was going to be 21-0, and that would have felt like a dagger already.
Yeah.
With a team that was going into that game 8-4,
Mhm.
that you thought would have been competitive, or finally chose to wake up against Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly, because they're a good competitive team.
And they always play competitive against the Chiefs.
Mhm.
Maybe in the playoffs, everyone changes their tone a little bit, but they got the best of them that day. So
Yeah.
they can choose to gloat over that all they desire. So all that will lead into the bigger discussion of the frustration and the anger and all that. But just only within the framing of Chiefs versus Bills, there was like way more intensity and energy on the Buffalo side. And like they were playing like the storyline was helping them, and like they had to prove themselves because of what their coach did.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs just could not match them most of the time. They would have some good runs, pick up a few plays here and there, and then they try to do kind of what they're familiar with, and
Mhm.
those same kind of players were making the same kind of mistakes. Towards the end of the game, where she had a drop and then didn't really see him much after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Toney, we saw have his foot over the line, obviously, and then didn't even play the last 3 plays when it was the game on the line, basically. And the team acted like they lost the second that score didn't count.
Yeah.
And they had 3 other downs that they just decided to waste. So I'm not gonna let like storylines and stuff like that distract from like, if you watch that game, they looked atrocious. They looked like they could be beaten at any point so easily. They look so fragile.
Too vulnerable.
And like, yeah, I'm done with that, guys. Like, one of the best groups on this team is the offensive line, and you guys need to let them run downhill, get mad, start bullying people, so you guys have that fire in a positive direction instead of that fire towards each other in a bashing kind of way.
Yeah, I agree.
So leading into, has the boiling point finally been reached? Do you think we're going to start seeing a new intensity from this team that we have not seen except for bits and pieces of when they turn it on?
I want to say I hope so. I'm hopeful that we will see that. But we've like seen this team in the past and it's like still up in the air. But I'm hopeful that it will be, just because this team, they still want to win. Like they still are there to like do the best they can. And if they realize that they haven't been doing their best, then maybe that is the fire that needs to be lit for the next game, to be like, okay, we're going to come out and we're going to smack them into the ground. We're going to beat them by 20.
Yeah. I mean, I guess part of me still has that fear that they still don't respect some of the teams they go against because of who the players or the quarterback in particular is, since they play essentially 4 backup quarterbacks in a row. But this is the NFL, and we've seen anything happen. So press conferences were yesterday by the time this comes out, that, you know, Chris Jones said that there wasn't that much intensity because it was early. So let's see if second week of December is, quote, early, or whether we're finally in postseason focus time. And the only way to successfully get to the postseason is, number one, win your division. So y'all can't afford to lose any game and then have Denver climb up to match you by that one move. And then after that, you can focus on where you stand and who your opponents might be and where you might have to play. But this team is too focused on an end goal where they're still making like sloppy mistakes on the way, where if you can't even get that part figured out, how can you imagine succeeding to such a higher level ahead of that?
Yeah, it's like every play I get less hopeful that like the season can be like a good season, because I see these dumb mistakes and every single play is something different. That it's like, oh, come on.
So that leads into, do we believe that Andy and Patrick will start holding guys a little more accountable? I don't think we're going to see it like as an intense level, like on camera or on field, as much for us to see it. But I truly believe that like Andy's being a little harder on his coaches and Patrick's being a little harder on his teammates.
I would,
They see the writing on the wall.
So.
That things can be like they could be danger. They could be in danger right now versus being a dangerous team. They could be the team in danger.
Yeah, I think they are ready to attack and they're ready to use those guys. And if they're not stepping up, they're very mad at them, I bet. They're probably in there like, come on, you need to do better.
Yeah.
Giving them the speech.
Because like the impression is they weren't even like trying that hard within practice. So practice is supposed to be harder than the game
Yeah.
because you're constantly getting critiqued what you did right and wrong and whatnot. And maybe that's not happening.
Mm.
And that's allowing some accountability to be dropped.
Yeah.
And
Slip
some
through.
blame to constantly be cast on others. So all that is cute and like whatever it does to help make you feel better about yourself and help you get through the day. But it ultimately, if you don't reach the Super Bowl, you're going to feel like this season was a failure based on the expectations you started the season with.
Mm-hmm.
So both sides of the ball, the defense was doing great. Start the season, they've tapered down just a little bit, but I mean, we said beginning of the season, 21 points should be Chiefs' offensive set, and the defense can clearly keep that under the give or take teams that can push that and go above it.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs need to start playing ball control, the type of offense that everyone jokes to play against the Chiefs because of how deadly we are. And you just don't want them to be on the field at all.
Yeah.
But maybe us fans have that sentiment that, yeah, right. Like, of course, they want them on the field because it's like their struggling unit.
Mm-hmm.
But like I heard from Jason yesterday, like, no, they're the Chiefs. They're Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid. Like, if it's the playoffs and they see them and they start to see something click again, they'll get scared real easily because we have the history of it working.
True.
But just something about this season hasn't worked. We know like the moving pieces that aren't here anymore or brand new just came in and what that's ultimately resorted to so far. But they still have a lot of work. There's still a lot of work to be done and not a lot of time to do it.
Yep.
In. There's the rest of the season, 4 additional games, and then whatever the playoffs is. And you would have assumed they would have needed to fix these issues by Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Or we were saying the division might have been done by Christmas time. And boy, how wrong we were. A month later, they essentially lost more games than won them in that span. So this is officially the last quarter of the season. They have a favorable schedule the rest of the way. So this should be the time where some people hop back on the bandwagon or look at them a little more optimistically than they were a week or 2 weeks ago or however long ago.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a chance to feel a little bit better about things, but still you're ultimately worried that the right matchup, you can get caught and you can continue to slip in those moments. And then you let that mistake make another one because you lost confidence in that regard. Playing frustrated versus playing focused and angry.
Mm-hmm.
So leads into our third topic for the show. So broken record. We've had so many videos and episodes of podcasts and videos. Whenever the Chiefs start doing well after a slump, that's when we think that it's time. In our last episode, it wasn't that it was time. It was saying, hey, time is running out.
Yeah, like it is
time to do it because you don't have any more time.
Mm-hmm.
Not like this is it, they're back. I've seen enough. This is, guys, you really need to come back.
Yeah.
And this game didn't have that feeling.
Nope.
Travis is starting to get more targets, he's starting to get more attention again after kind of felt like a dead period for him. So that's one positive to add on, that chemistry and Travis feeling himself a little bit more than he was to begin the season. So obviously having Travis kick in to his normal gear, or even just 3/4 of his
Yeah.
normal gear, would be plenty enough for that to work.
Mm-hmm.
The running the ball seemed to work well on
It
Sunday,
did.
even without Pacheco.
It did.
One of the only 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs was on a running play from Kenny in the red zone. So maybe we'll start to see some of that smash mouth, prove that you can stop it type of mentality, instead of, we'll finesse you and beat you with 1,000 paper cuts. Maybe he realizes his offensive line is a bunch of dogs, and you just got to get them fired up and start running and hitting people and get Isaiah Pacheco warmed up and
Mm-hmm.
get him heated and fired up of his own.
Yep.
Because that energy is infectious.
Yeah,
when you
it
have
is.
that, it bleeds into everywhere. Every
Mm-hmm.
part of the team or the coaching staff feels it.
Yep.
One of the points that Jason made last night was, like, without Eric Bieniemy, it seems like we're missing that guy on offense who's willing to get into somebody's face and tell them to step up.
Oh, yeah.
So
That could be the reason.
So Chris Jones has Joe Cullen, and we see them get into fights, but then all he does is say how much he loves and respects him after the fact. And we don't have that guy on offense that is willing to be a fiery, scary voice almost,
Yeah.
because Andy's not that personality anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and neither is Matt Nagy, and clearly the wide receivers coach isn't one either. So they need more accountability. So I'm hoping that at this point Andy comes out angry and ready to show the world that you're trying to write us off. You don't think that my offense can you don't think I can come up with a good enough offense, especially with a Patrick Mahomes of any kind. Just stick to it. Stay with us. We're sorting things out. We have some ideas. Some things work, and then some things don't work in that moment or during that game.
Yeah.
So, but if the plays work, then the players have to execute.
True.
So whoever it is, if Pat has to throw better, if a wide receiver has to get in the right spot or run the correct route, if the O-lineman got a block for an extra second, whatever the case may be, this is crunch time, and it's time to fix it. And we're no longer saying this is when it is fixed. We are going to keep contemplating when we believe it's leading towards fixed. They seem fixable, and they seem like they've made some improvements besides some of their just buffoon level mistakes as well.
Yeah.
So they demonstrate that they're going in the right direction, and then they'll shoot themselves in the foot on the way to wherever they're going to. So if they can just tighten up, like we could be ready for those high score games,
right,
that we've been ready for, because they've had moments where they're right there, and then they do something to take all the air out.
Yep.
So if
they mess it up,
if they just focus one drive at a time, one play at a time, don't worry about doing too much. Do what you can do and give it your best. Believe you can make any play and do anything on that field that's asked of you to do. And this team is a good team, and they still have a bunch of remaining pieces from Super Bowl roster. So
yep,
it shouldn't be out of the question that they are so screwed, so to say, that they can't overcome what they're going through and fix themselves.
Yeah.
But they're just either they're slow to do it, they don't see the urgency. What do you attest to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it does come from the coaches. Like they need somebody, like you said, that's going to be there. That's going to be like, hey, I'm gonna push you to your like limit that you can't go any farther because I've pushed you so far.
Right.
And I think that they're missing that this year. When you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's probably the reason. Because it all comes from leadership. And Pat's a good leader, but he can only do so much.
Right.
He's only human.
It's not his responsibility to tell other wide receivers to do their job properly.
Nope.
That's what the coaches are supposed to do, and then you're held accountable. And then your coaches are held accountable for you, and then the head coach holds those coaches accountable based on your performance.
Yeah, but I think Andy Reid might get mad at the coaches. Like he might be getting on their butts.
If he's not, you'd be shocked.
I would be shocked, yeah.
But that's a new area. This is a coach who's never actively been a coach before. He's only done, film study type work, projects of that nature. So maybe, because we don't know, we're not in practice fields and in the film rooms, in the office, hearing what they're talking about. So we don't know how much these guys are on them or not.
Exactly.
Their attitudes make it seem like
they're just kind of being lax
and arrogant. Like, how dare you criticize my performance when even I have to admit internally that I'm not meeting expectations that I've had for a while. So no more blaming, like own up to it. You guys are having a problem. The first step is admitting you have problems so you can get it fixed. Call it what it is. Bring it to light. Take it out of the darkness so you can't keep babying it and hiding it away. It's so obvious. Everyone can see it. Turn the lights on. Expose it for what it is and start understanding the pieces of it so that you can put it back together in a way that we believe will lead towards success.
Yeah.
For the end of the season.
Yeah.
So we can get where we want to be.
Yep.
So, last topic of the episode. Pat versus the Pats. So, the Chiefs travel to Foxborough, Massachusetts for a nooner game. Oh, nice of us here in the kingdom to get a nooner game after a while. I really think like the last early slot game was in Germany.
It was.
So
I'm pretty sure.
an 8:30, and then everything else has been 3 o'clock or 7 o'clock essentially. So maybe this is what they need right now as well. That they're not going to be like the most watched game in that time window. They're not expected to struggle much, besides the fact that they have Bill Belichick. He's a hell of a defensive coach. Andy's had his way with them in recent years, but it's like you can't like not suspect some trickiness with Bill Belichick. So, but the defense should have their way with their offense because they struggle to move the ball, and our defense plays with an intensity. Nick Bolton came back on Sunday. It seems like Drew Tranquill's finally coming back out of his concussion protocol, so he might be looking to come back for this game. Did not look like Pacheco was going to be on the right direction, but we don't have an official word until closer to Sunday.
Yeah.
So, like, we want Pacheco down the stretch, obviously, but I had faith enough in our running backs where if they were just given enough chances that they can move the ball and continue the drive, put the team on their backs, versus it's always on Andy and Patrick's to find a guy to throw it to, and you better catch it.
Yeah.
So,
bro.
hopefully this is a very slow, methodical game, and the Chiefs decide when to try to take some deep shots, because I feel like if they can get some throws down the field, some bomb touchdowns, or some giant 30, 40-yard gains on the sidelines, that's going to, hype them up a little bit,
Yeah.
get their confidence going. Like, yeah, we are them. We just got to remember who we are and the logo that's on our helmet and chest and all that. And remember our history. We've been there before. This team can overcome any obstacle in front of them as long as they stay focused and hungry for that obstacle. So if you're not hungry, then get out of there and let someone else sit at the table who's ready to continue to eat and eat and eat.
Yep.
So there's not even really much to talk about the game in general, because the Patriots are not a good team. Their record shows that. They've had performances. Some games they can't even put up a score at all. So if the Chiefs look bad against this team, then next week we're going to come on here and we're going to be like twice as intense as this to say, good gosh, we kept hyping up how in trouble we are, but like, we are so in trouble now. You guys cannot justify your way out of like hoping and coping through this one, bud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like they're gonna be ready to win, because they haven't been winning. So you would think that they would be ready to win, and they would come out and be like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and get it done.
Right. That's what you assume, but the team has come out very flat at times.
Yeah.
So
it's like they can't connect for some reason.
It's like the question, will they overcome this now, because we've seen them finally reach a point where they see the writing on the wall as badly as we do, and they're the ones who can control it in some degree.
Yeah.
So you need to get it together, man. You put it back in line. Focus on the remainder of the season. We can be hurt by the games that have happened, but if they can come out and look like we know they're capable of looking, then everybody can keep blanking those terrible, scary, unsure moments away.
Yeah.
If they continue to happen, then each one of those times can keep magnifying
a little more
that feeling that things weren't right. And it kept getting buried down, but then it gets shoved back up to the surface again, and you get even further up and further up. So it's a test, and not one in terms of like wins or losses, but just trying to stay focused 100% through a game like this coming up, to win it and to outright win it and to put the game away and out of reach. All those should be on the table. Don't just win. Try to win by a certain amount. Try to hold the ball for a certain amount, and it's pretty much won the game. Whatever it is, start making these decisions in these games to do whatever it takes to win, versus kind of a default plan that you've set your mind to. That maybe you set clear back in September. That stuff we're not at that point anymore.
Yeah, it's not really relevant anymore.
We've seen what they are. We can't flash back to what we, like, best case scenario thought. We just have to go off of what we actually see and who can be trusted.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a stretch, because this is a time when the team needs to be most motivated, and they're playing in situations that may lead people at home to shrug their shoulders at it.
Right.
So no more of that. Come out every game fired up, ready to play, ready to embarrass teams.
Yes.
Frankly, if you have to, because you aren't getting the kind of respect that you expect to get right now.
Yep.
And until you show that you can do that and put a beat down on teams, you're going to be just middle of the pack. And you can go on a run, sure, but then there's other teams that you also think can catch the Chiefs depending on how they play versus you guys play and how the matchups work. If their team has a really good defense, are you afraid it's a defensive showcase? If they have a really good offense, are you afraid that it's going to take a certain amount of points to win, no matter how good the defense plays?
True.
So this is it. This is the time where we stop talking and we take action. So that's what we're going to do right now, and that's what the Chiefs are going to do.
Yep.
And if they don't, then we're going to be right back here next week saying it's done, guys. Don't bother putting all of your don't put all this pressure on it, because they felt the pressure and they folded. So we can't have that, and I'm not going to believe that's the case yet. We've seen them nearly hit rock bottom, and when you hit rock bottom, there's only up to go.
Yep.
So that's the idea. They've finally hit a rock bottom. They realize it, and they're mad about it. So now they're going to use that anger and intensity in a positive direction instead of a self-destructive direction. Anything else you want to say?
They need to get it done.
They do.
Get her done.
They dang sure do. So thank you all for watching. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Kingdom Media. You can hit subscribe here on YouTube and like the video and all that stuff. If that wasn't enough content for you, I've also got linked here my Home of the Chiefs breakdown video I did from Monday, kind of giving my 5-6 minutes State of the Union about the Chiefs and what I thought they were at. I already mentioned earlier the Jason Dunn after hours that we shot, and that conversation did a lot with me putting some more stuff in perspective and trying to be more positive and remember all the pieces that we do have and just letting them figure it out. They believe they still have time. So until they start exhibiting the urgency, then it's not up to us fans to be urgent for them.
True.
So
yeah.
So that's all I got. Be sure to stick around later this week, because we're gonna have a episode of the Chiefin podcast, as long as Dale is not deadly sick still at that point. There we go. I gave us an out on video just in case. So, but if he's alive and can speak, you want to come on here and talk Chiefs, because that's what we all love to do here. I don't got anything else. I'm just ready to focus on this Chiefs game against the Patriots. Stop overthinking the mistakes we've made and focus on the next week.
Yeah.
And focus on what you can control and make sure you're holding everybody, including yourself, accountable.
Yep.
Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your week. As always, go Chiefs!
Thanks for checking out this update straight from the heart of Chiefs Kingdom. We appreciate your passion, so please leave a like and follow us wherever you tune in from. See you next tailgate, your trusted source for all things Chiefs, Red Kingdom